This is Abnormal Entertainment.
Hey everybody, this is Daniel Garza and welcome to another episode of Put It Together. I'd like to start as usual thanking my producer, Mr. Kevin Moyers, for all his help and support. Thank you, sir. I'd like to invite y'all to check us out at abnormalentertainment.com where you can find all the shows on the network. This morning, I'm very excited because I am visiting Mr. Andrew Leventhal, and I'm going to turn the camera around so you guys can check him out. Hey, good morning, sir. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for having me and for schlepping all the way to my office here in Pasadena.
Thank you for making time. I know we kind of rescheduled a couple of times because either you got busy or I got busy, but such is the life of an attorney.
It's what it is. I'm always trying to fight for people, trying to win, and trying to stand up to these bullies all day, which permeate the government in all facets, local, state, and federal, especially nowadays, right?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out, and we talked about it a little bit, trying to figure out how I found you. But I think we narrowed it down to one particular case that you were working on that was all over the TV here, especially here in LA. Can we mention that or?
It's on, you look me up, I'm sure you can see it, you know what I mean? But I think I'd rather, stay away from talking about that case. Yeah.
And then I found you on Instagram, because you're very, very much Instagrammer.
I'm always trying to hustle, promote, and, grow my firm, just like everybody.
So, for those of you watching or listening, we'll post the link to the Instagram so you guys can follow him too. You put great stuff. Plus, I'll be on his Instagram now. I feel special. I'll be in your Instagram.
Well, I appreciate it. I mean, come on, feeling's mutual,
So, attorney Andrew Leventhal, tell us how you put it together.
Well, God, it's like, it's a journey. Every life, everything is a journey in this world. And, I think that, we're all born a certain way. I really do. I think that we all have the building blocks or some type of basic structure to what our personality and what our heart is going to be like in this world. And then the environment, among other variables, I believe, is what sort of shapes, right, that bare bones sort of skeletal nature of what we're born with in terms of our personality and our heart, right? And I've always been a very passionate guy. I'm a Jewish guy, and if you know how aggressive Jewish lawyers are, we got a stereotype for a reason, among other things. And so it's in my blood really to fight hard, and I attribute that to, the history and a lot of the things that my culture has been through, but also, it's just who I am, because not every Jewish person is this way, but you'll find that we are pretty intense people, right? We're pretty in your face, right? And so, I just give a shit, I give a shit about people. I care. And, I recognize this, real early on. I used to get suspended and stuff like that for standing up to bullies when I was in junior high and high school. That were trying to, mess with some of my friends, I grew up in San Diego, I was a hardcore skateboarder, etc., and it was very cliquey growing up. I was part of the skateboarder crew, and there was jocks, right, and the jocks would always want to, try to, bully us a little bit, and then you had the wannabe gangbangers, they'd want to bully us a little bit, right, and so, it was kind of a thing where I just kind of had this natural, gotta stand up for this person who can't really stand up for themselves, right? Just for whatever reason, right? And so, and I didn't really understand what that's all about, really, but, I knew that I was just more attracted to the humanities. I was attracted to people, right? And so that means that's like the opposite of science and math. It's not that I didn't try hard and things like that. I just felt more connected to verbalizing and expressing things, right? To writing, to advocacy, to learning about people and history. And so that's sort of what I pursued, when I went to school in college, I went to UC Santa Barbara, I started in the year 2000. That's when I graduated high school. And, I did a humanities major, and I started learning a lot about history and sociology and things like that. And, and I could tell that I was meant to speak up for people, and so that's kind of why I went to law school, and I thought I was going to be a sports agent, like show me the money, like Jerry Maguire, because it was but when you're a kid, you don't really know shit, you know what I mean? You're just like, you see things, on TV, or you hear about it, and things just sound cool, but you don't really actually know, right? So, sports agent, right? Oh, I want to be a business attorney, right? Or business administration, you hear all this stuff, because it sounds, cool, right? And like legit, right? But, I realized that that's not really what I wanted to do once I got internships and things like that, and I could see what the world was really like. And so, towards the end of my law school career, about the second and third year of my law school career, I entered a oral argument competition with respect to, it was a hypothetical case, of course, because you're in law school, but the oral argument competition was in connection with a criminal case where I was supposed to be a defense attorney, and I was supposed to essentially argue to have certain confessions or admissions from the client excluded from evidence as being a violation of that client's constitutional rights. You've all heard of Miranda versus Arizona. You have the right to remain silent and all these things, right? So, I wrote my little papers, I got up there, and I passionately argued, you know what I mean? And I was encouraged by professors and things like that to become a trial attorney, that I might be a good trial lawyer. And it was at that point, it was either going to be, if you want to get real trial experience, it's either going to be the the district attorney's office in really any county, and that's basically to prosecute people, right, for crimes, or it was going to be to defend people and be a public defender, right? That's how you get that trial experience. That's how you learn really how to be a criminal law lawyer. And for me, it's just not in my DNA to, not that, I have a lot of respect for a lot of prosecutors. It's just not who I am. I just don't feel comfortable being in a role of authority or judging people or having that much of an impact on people's lives in that way. It just doesn't attract me, I'm always attracted to what's difficult and what's adverse and, and the fight, right? And standing up for individuals. And so, while you can stand up for victims as a prosecutor and things like that, you have a much more direct connection. As a prosecutor, you don't represent individual people. You represent an abstract entity called the people of the state of California, taxpayers, right? And so, and you're trying to basically keep the community safe as a prosecutor and things like that, right? I was more attracted to the connection to the human being, the actual person, right? Okay. And I knew that there was a lot of things wrong with the system because I had been arrested myself, in college. Of course, there's a reason why I do what I do. And I'm just very passionate about people who are suffering, particularly people who engage in self-destructive behavior because they're addicted to something. We all have some shit, right? Right. Food, sex, drugs, gambling, what have you, right? It's like we all have a stimulus that produces a dopamine rush of some sort, right? And sometimes for people it leads to self-destructive behavior, and it's like they get caught up, in the system, and they need help. I just think it's not right that everyone's sort of treated like, you're guilty, and There's a reason why people do what they do. And it's my passion to try to figure out why, to help, and to prevent things from permanently altering people's lives in the system, right? And so my purpose is to stand up to bullies, just, plain and simple, and that's what I do. And I kind of put all that in a nutshell, but there's a lot that's obviously gone on, parallel to my professional development. All right. Well,
you gave me a lot to be able to ask from. I'm taking a lot of notes. So going back, you say you remember from being in school and defending people and already standing up to the bullies. Yeah. Was that something that, was that a trait that you already had when you were younger? Were you the why and why not kid to the mom? Why not? Why not?
Of course. I was very, a very analytical thinker, very cerebral, to my detriment, I believe. Because I think that, we really should focus on how we feel a lot and what's going on here in our heart, instead of always constantly thinking, because then you overthink things, right? But, I would always question authority. I never liked authority. It just always rubbed me the wrong way. Because, it's like, why? What makes you, right, have the ability to have power over all these things? And I could kind of see at a very young and early age that these people in positions of authority or power, right, weren't just incredibly qualified in all facets to be there, right? And then you start to think about, why are things the way they are, right?
Do you recall arguments with your parents and what they would say to you when you got into that position?
Yeah, I mean, I was very defensive, when I was a lot less mature than I am now, where I would waste a lot of energy and time, defending just nothingness, right?
Right.
Just, you know how, you know what type of personality that is, right? It's
Yeah.
always defending, always trying to make the point, always trying to, be right? But, less I think with my parents, I was just, my brother and myself, like, we just were scared. I don't know. It was like, we partied hard. We, we were scared. We did drugs and everything else, like a lot of kids do growing up. My brother's only 2 years older than me, but we were always incredibly motivated in school to do well, right? And we did. We were just, I don't know what it was. We were just afraid of not maximizing our education. Like, education was just like sort of something we were born with, and that we just had to do. And so
in your case, your parents didn't have to be on you about...
They never had to be on me, so I never really had so many arguments about like school and work and why should I have to do this type of thing, right? In terms of school and that type of thing. It was more so in school, me challenging like the teachers and stuff like that, and that type of stuff, like me being a little shit like that.
So you were that kid in school that had to challenge everything and ask questions and
I wasn't a challenger necessarily, more so than I was annoying in the sense that I wanted to be the best, and that meant that I wanted to know everything. I wanted to know why things were the way they were, right? And I wanted to have a extremely deep understanding of every concept that was put forth, growing up, and particularly in law school. You know what I mean? So people, I think, had a love-hate relationship with me in law school because I'm the guy who would raise the hand and ask questions and say, "Well, you're on, Professor so-and-so. So does that mean this because of that?" And then I get an answer, and then say, "Well, is that going to be on the exam?" Right? And like things like that.
You were that kid.
And so like people were annoyed by it, but they also kind of were happy and appreciated it because they wanted to know the answer to the same question. They just didn't want to be like the person in front of everybody, And so I'm also somebody like, I don't give a shit what people think about me. It's not what I focus on, I focus on trying to do the right thing, treating people right, working hard, right, and having a strong work ethic, and just trying to do the right thing.
That's always interesting.
And be myself, yeah.
Before I go on the other stuff, that's always interesting to me. People who are born with that gene, I don't give a shit. Do you remember always being like that, or
I'm a human being, so I do care what people think about me, of course, but not like to the extent that you might see other people, right? So I am just myself, right? And I try to be true to myself all the time because I personally believe, right, that if you just figure out who you are and you just constantly practice who you really truly are, you're true to yourself on a daily basis. I know it's such a cliche, but cliches are cliches for a reason.
For a reason, yeah.
They're true. Then you will find success. And in my opinion, right, when you're true to yourself, and that means that you're not really so focused on what everyone's going to be thinking of you. Because if you're externally focused on what everyone's going to be thinking about you, then you're going to behave in ways that are not true to yourself because you're trying to garner more support. But I believe in quality versus quantity, right? And so I would rather have strong support from less people than superficial support from a lot of people.
Right.
Right?
The popularity vote, per se.
Because it's about quality in life, right? It's about, that's what carries us through to success, is when you have real, things that are real. And I think especially so in this extremely fake millennial age now where, there's so much, because, it's just the internet is so fake, right? Mm-hmm. Social media is so, it's hit and miss, right? What's accurate and what's not. And so I think it's even more important now to, just be yourself. And I think that invariably you'll attract people, some people are not going to like you, but you're going to have a whole lot more people that are going to be attracted to what it is that you're trying to do from a long-term, more permanent standpoint.
Right.
That's what I believe.
That's pretty interesting. Yeah, because I definitely... And I think not just millennials, I think a lot of us who grew up without the internet and all of a sudden got caught up in it, we want to be liked, especially, and I'll admit, because I'm social media and everything I do is social media, I live by how many people are watching, liking, commenting.
Sure.
And you do sometimes get caught up in the...
We do, yeah.
And then you have to come back and then people start doubting who you really are and what you're really representing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. And that's just my thing. I think that, I truly believe in that, and and I really pay attention to people and in this world, and it's like I think that it takes a lot of you have to pay a lot of attention and study people, for a long time to be able to develop a sense of awareness, to be able to see through certain things.
Right.
And in another opinion, to me, it's like something that gets people far in life is if they know people, right? And they can see through people and they can read people fairly accurately.
Right.
And what I do as a criminal defense attorney, right? I need to be able to size people up. Really accurately in a very short period of time. And I'm not just talking about my clients. I mean, that's really, that's like number 3. Number 1 and number 2 is the judge and the prosecutor.
Really?
Yeah. Because those are the people that have control and power over what's going to happen to my client. And so if I can figure out what motivates them, I win.
Got it. All right. So you have this sense of... Is it a sense of protecting the world? Is it a Superman complex kind of when you were in school, when you were in law school?
I don't think anybody is really inherently that altruistic. I don't think anybody truly just does everything with zero level of selfishness, and I don't think being selfish is necessarily a bad thing. It just depends on the context. I think that people connotate selfishness with. I digress a lot, with a negative, sentiment. But really, it's like, to me, it's just like everything in life is a balance. As long as you have a proper balance with everything in every dimension in life, it's healthy, right? And so, obviously, what I do, right, and this is, what I do is I give my heart, my soul, and everything, to other people to try to change their lives for the better, right? And, of course, right, like, I do it just, there's no conditions, but of course, other than of course me getting paid, right?
Right.
And that's of course you can say, the selfish part, but it's not so much about the money for me, because if it was, I'd be defending insurance companies or doing other things, right? It's more about, feeling that level of fulfillment, right? And knowing that, that people really do care about you and appreciate you, right? That's the selfish part for me, and that's what really drives me and motivates me. And so, if I can really, change someone's life for the better, right, and they let me know, right, how much of an impact I had, right, that is what I'm looking for, mostly in return. And believe it or not, it doesn't happen that often, right? It happens often that I help people significantly, but it's not often that those people actually take the time to sit there and reflect as to how important, right, that moment was for them in their life, and to actually express some gratitude to me, right?
Because I've always argued, not always, but I've argued with people since I started doing volunteer work and doing my energy work and doing healing work, and people are like, "Oh my God, you made them feel so nice for helping them." And I've told people, I'm like, I don't do it for them. I do it because it makes me feel good to help out or volunteer or donate my time. Like, I do nice things because it makes me feel good. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it. Does that make sense?
Of course. Of course. And I don't think that that's a bad thing, that you do it because it makes you feel good, right? But it doesn't make you feel good for like a negative reason.
No.
It's not, that's positive selfishness, if you ask me. I was like, okay. So then you get into the whole debate. It was like, what is true altruism? Some people argue, well, it's like the notion of wanting to help people without like expecting anything in return, including that positive feeling that you get from helping people, like you just articulated a minute ago, right? I disagree with that. I think that's a little much. I think that human beings are all self-interested people, particularly now in this day and age. You see how it is. Everybody's scratching and clawing, especially in a place like LA. It's like a rat race. Everyone's scratching and clawing and competing and trying to fight for themselves and their family, right? To the nth degree here, right? And so, which is okay. It's fine. I mean, that's the world we live in, and we're all just trying to make it. It's not an easy life, particularly in the United States, particularly in a place like California, right? Where there's so many rules. So yeah, I think that's a good thing, and I oftentimes will help people because it'll make me feel good too. I mean, that's really why I do what I do. It's because it makes me feel good.
Talking a little bit more about, well, before I go into that, in school, you're about to finish your, I guess, graduate school. What is your thoughts? What are your feelings? Like, okay, I'm going to go out and defend people, and like, here I go.
My thoughts really were, fuck. Like, am I going to be able to, my thoughts were like, fuck, am I going to be able to pay, what am I going to do? I mean, I got I got a couple Ferraris worth of student loan debt from college and law school. Am I going to be able to get a job, even though I'm qualified, right? Number one. Number two, is there going to be enough money for me to actually be able to, like, exist? I came out in 2007, okay, 2008. 2007 was when I graduated law school. Took the bar exam, etc. in July of 2007. Thankfully, I passed it on the first time. But that's not really, the problem. The problem is back then it was like the economy was so bad and it was so hard to get a job, and I was just scared shitless, about being able to make it financially, right? And at the same time, of course, being able to, be a good attorney and learn how to do it, right? I mean, it's a daunting endeavor. I mean, you don't learn how to be a lawyer in law school. Okay. You allegedly are taught to think like a lawyer in law school, but I don't really buy that. I believe that either you think like a lawyer or not before law school. Like, either that's just part of your DNA or it's not, right?
Right.
And so
you, I guess, to kind of put it in perspective to people listening, or somebody young who's like, I want to be an attorney. Do you feel that fight? Do you feel that energy the moment you walk into school the first day? You're like, I'm home.
Home, shit. I mean, I don't feel like an unbelievable amount of anxiety in my home, right? So no, it did not feel like home. I mean, I felt just triple anxiety. I mean, it's just like, but you have to understand, I'm a very, like, conscientious, like, neurotic guy where, like, I want to, I don't procrastinate. Like, I want to make sure it's done. And I want to, anything I commit to in life, right, I give it my all, right? I'm an all or nothing guy or person, right? And so when I went there, the way I did law school was, like, I incarcerated myself, metaphorically, of course,
right.
I, studied 12, 13 hours a day, every day. That's what I did, Went to school. There was, it was terrible nutrition, lean cuisines and, barely any exercise, you know what I mean? And it wasn't like a good experience, like, for your mind, body, and your soul, right? But this is my purpose. Like, I knew, like, this is going to be my future, right? And so, it was like that, really. I mean, the bar exam was like that, like, times like 50 for me. I mean, it was like, you studied for 4 months after law school, and it's really hard. And what I would like to say, I guess, is for people who are thinking about going to law school is don't do it just because it sounds cool or because, like, it's like one of those traditional old professions that has, like, some semblance of respect, like a doctor or an accountant, right? Whatever, dentist, right? Do it because you can't be good at it, and you can't do it, with any, like, significant endeavor unless you're fully committed, meaning you're going to give it your all, right? And you really can help a lot of people as a lawyer. You really can. And I think it's a tremendous thing, and I think that, if you're passionate about people, you should do it. But the reality is that you don't have to be passionate about people to be an attorney and do well. Because a lot of attorneys, right, don't do people. They defend companies or perpetuate,
But I was thinking, even those long hours, those crappy meals, isn't that just training for being an attorney?
Well, I mean, you could look at it like that, and they kind of, I mean, the notion of stamina and, like, the notion of, like, the amount of stress that you go through, yeah, I do think it prepares you in some sense, you know what I mean, for what it's going to be like. But I think that it really depends upon what type of lawyer you become, right? Because it's such a huge, spectrum being an attorney. Like there's so many different areas, and you really can't be a jack of all trades and do it well. And so your level of stress is really dictated by what you do, where you are, and who you are in terms of your natural disposition. So, yes, it's really hard, but it's extremely rewarding.
All right. So once you graduated, you're about to step out into the world. Do you remember the best advice somebody gave you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of the biggest pieces of advice, that I give and that I learned myself from others is just not to compare yourself to other people. And I think that's for pretty much every single dimension in life. We as people, right? It's psychological. It's social psychology, right? Like people conform to what everyone else is doing, right? Because nobody wants to be like that outlier, that person that stands out from the crowd, right? And so, when you're in school or this and that, and it's a very stressful environment, right? And we have a natural tendency to look over and see, oh my God, like there's that dude with all those highlighters again. He's got them all color coded and he's doing this, doing that. And you're thinking to yourself, and I'm just a little kid. I'm only 21 years old. I'm thinking to myself like, oh God, should I have all those highlighters too? Should I do it like him? And blah, 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 blah. The answer is no. You stay true to yourself. You do you, right? Like, did I really just say that?
Yes.
Isn't that what Kim Kardashian? Who said that? Reggie Bush said that to Kim Kardashian. You do you. Oh, Jesus Christ. Anyways, so
it's just to show that we're really hip on the show.
Shows you my fiance has me watching the Kardashians. Anyways, so what were we talking about, man?
The best advice.
Okay, yeah, just don't compare yourself to other people. Seriously, it's going to bring you down. Look. You are you. You're not other people, right? And so don't compare yourself to other people because we're just all different. And you can get from point A to point B in a completely different way than somebody else and be equally, if not more successful in the long run. And that's all we want to be, right? Is successful, right?
But was there anybody...
So it's not the how. It's not the how that you have to do it a certain way, is what I guess what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Do how it makes you feel comfortable.
Was there anybody in the legal profession that you looked up to or noticed? Or
Totally. I mean, they're all defense lawyers, of course,
right.
You know what I mean? Because there's just that heart, that soul, that passion. Obviously, one that comes to mind, everybody knows, is Johnny Cochran. He was on OJ's Dream Team in the mid-90s there. We all know about that, right? If it doesn't fit, you must acquit, right?
Yeah.
Cesspool of contamination was how Johnny described the LAPD's crime lab in OJ's case. Look, of course, I think about other lawyers, in New York City, like Benjamin Brafman's a pretty intense, gnarly dude, I can go on and on, you know what I mean? But there are certain people, sure, everybody knows Jerry Spence, that, I look up to for sure.
What was your first job coming out of law school?
You mean actually, okay, so, when I got out of law school and I passed the bar, I didn't get a job right away. Because again, it was so difficult. So I was living at home, with my mom, literally, and I was doing odd jobs as an independent contractor, right? A new lawyer for people around town in San Diego, other lawyers around town. So I didn't have any real thing, no platform to be high or whatever. So that's what I did. And while I was doing that, I was applying to public defender offices all over California. San Diego was frozen at the time, so I didn't apply there. Frozen meaning that there was a hiring freeze.
Right.
So Orange County, LA, Santa Clara, San Francisco, and I got some interviews. I interviewed at Orange County, I interviewed in San Francisco, interviewed in LA, right? And I just, no offense, I just did not like Orange County's thing at all. Wasn't my vibe, and so that didn't work out. San Francisco basically told me, hey, look, you need to get some experience in the public defender's office before you can apply here. I'm like, well, I'm a brand new lawyer. How am I supposed to do that, right? So that thing, that one didn't work out. And so everything happens for a reason, right? And so I got offered, I got hired by the LA Public Defender's Office, which in my opinion, objectively, I'm not being biased, I think has arguably the best training program for defense attorneys in the entire nation. You're talking about 1,000 lawyers, in the LA Public Defender's Office. Great attorneys, very passionate people, and I'm so unbelievably grateful for that experience. So I was a public defender in Los Angeles for 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how, I'm sure it was intense, but can you pinpoint the best lesson you learned there?
God, so many. I guess that I don't have to feel extreme anxiety and feel bad if I'm unable to save everybody.
Well, how do you...
Because it's impossible when you're a public defender to save everybody. There's just too many. I mean, you're representing 98%, maybe a little less, but maybe 95% of the system, right? Can't afford to hire their own attorney of their own choosing, right?
Right.
And so that's when the public defender steps in and represents people.
How do you handle those losses?
Well, I don't really look at them as like a loss. It's like, how do you even define a loss? How do you define a win, right? Because not everything is, it's like, okay, not everything goes to trial with a jury trial like you see on TV and, and like a verdict and all those things. And so how do you classify a win if you negotiate a disposition, a plea bargain before trial, right? Mm-hmm. Well, it depends upon many factors, But really, the most important thing is whether your client's happy and feels, good and happy like they have a chance.
So let's rephrase the question. How do you feel when your client walks away not happy?
Well, I hate it, but I have clients that walk away pissed after a dismissal or a not guilty verdict. I had that often. When you're a public defender, like, one of the hardest parts is just like the fact that you just day in and day out in the trenches, you're battling with the same prosecutor every day, and if they're not of a particular mindset, it can be extremely toxic. Same with the judge. Most judges are going to side with the prosecution. Okay, it's just a bias that exists in the system.
Right.
Most judges are not defense oriented. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's just a fact. Okay, and so it can be really toxic day in and day out as a public defender, and it's super hard. But and you don't get any necessarily like apropos, and sometimes you can get huge wins for your types of wins that I got, and as a public defender no one knows about, because it's not about that. It's not about like, hey, look at me, like in the private sector we're all like, hey, look at me so we can get business, right? But in the public defender that's not what it's about, it's pure.
Is it easy to leave everything at the office?
No, it's impossible. I mean, impossible. And so, I had my really unhealthy ways of coping with the amount of stress and toxicity and pain that I saw in the system on a day-to-day basis. I had my ways of dealing with it. They're extremely unhealthy, Yeah. And, so I've been working on myself. I try to be a better man, mentally and physically, every day. Emotionally, and once I realized that the nature of my job, right, was extremely toxic and it's impossible for me personally to separate from my personal life. Like, there's other lawyers who they don't take it home with them. I can't. I think about these people. I get so nervous. Like this morning, I was in the shower, I get literally butterflies and nervousness thinking about whether or not I'm going to be able to get the job done for my client.
How does that affect the people around you on your personal life?
It affects them tremendously. That's a really good question because I'm about to get married next month, right? And it's like I know and she knows and I know and she knows, right? That it's that the level of stress that I endure, right, on a day-to-day basis, right, has a significant impact in my personal relationships, right?
Right.
Because when you come in, again, I can't just detach it. I mean, when you have a rough day or a bad one, like, Daniel, I can tell that you're like emotional like me as well, right? And it's like you can't really just like whatever. Okay, I'm home. Ha!
Yeah.
Like no, it's like it takes me like a good hour before I can like kind of like like I actually literally will take a shower and like wash the day off.
That's pretty cool. I was about to ask you, how do you start de-stressing when you get home?
So I'm like I do everything to the max that I'm committed to, and I'm super, you can't tell, but I'm super into weightlifting, so I exercise a lot, right? I have pretty damn good nutrition. I'm pretty hardcore with my nutrition and my exercise, and, no, I don't drink and do that anymore because that just is not healthy long term and it doesn't make me a good attorney, So I try to find healthy ways of dealing with the stress. Seeing a shrink, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I'm coming from also doing drugs and alcohol and being clean and sober for 11 years now. I used to, that was my go-to, especially when I worked for an attorney.
Right.
Everybody went for cocktails after work. Like, let's go hit happy hour. And that's where you
blow the steam off.
Yeah, you connect with people. And we went to a bar where a lot of attorneys and aides and assistants hung out with. And that's where you made the under-table deals. It's like, hey, can you do this? And I learned, and I mean, I have to admit that a lot of those cons and working negotiations help me now, especially when I'm dealing with people in interviews. But I can't do the drugs and the alcohol anymore because that's just not going to connect.
Well, of course, it keeps you down. But I mean, so, I coped with things in very unhealthy ways, when I was a lot younger. And I'm not perfect. I'll never be perfect, and I fight every day, and I just try to be a better version of myself. But
doesn't even that? Because as we mentioned before we started, I worked for an attorney for a while, and I learned a lot from just working for him. Having gotten in a little trouble, having gone through your own personal issues and wars, don't you believe that trained you to be a little more maybe empathetic to people, or just be more, have a little more sympathy?
Well, absolutely. I mean, it opened my eyes to a lot of things. You know what I mean? I gotta just check one thing real quick. Can I just check outside? Thanks.
All right. So one of the things that always interests me about attorneys is the stress levels and how you handle. I mean, I know you talked about going home, taking a shower, relaxing. But you have your day-to-day stuff, then you have your work stuff, and then now you're saying you're getting married, so you have that on top of that. If we can't go to unhealthy ways of de-stressing and blowing off steam, what does Andrew Leventhal do when after the shower to like decompress a little bit?
I mean, I do a lot of things that a lot of people do, but I mean, exercise and proper nutrition are the fundamentals of it, really. I need to meditate a lot more. I mean, my fiance, my future wife, she's a yoga therapist, and she is a master at all of these things, and I just try to learn from her as to how I can, de-stress in healthy ways. I mean, so that's pretty much it. It's look. The reality is that it doesn't really shut off for me. It's constantly going. It's like a committee that keeps talking up here, right? Because it's like I'm thinking about my cases all the time. I'm worried about people all the time. People being my clients, right?
Right.
And so, I mean, I don't really have. I mean, this is just the truth. Just to be personal, I don't really have good sleep. I don't. I'm not saying I feel bad for me and all these things. It's just what it is. It's things in life to deal with. And so I'm thinking a lot. I ruminate a lot about my cases and stuff, and I'll even like get up and write notes, like on Post-it notes and things like that about my cases because I'm so neurotic. I don't want to forget, right? And I want to make sure that I can have every thing in my arsenal to beat these people, right? Because if you don't come at the bully hard, and back your stuff up, they'll eat you alive.
Is it easy being you?
I mean, no, because I'm a pain in the ass. I'm definitely a pain in the ass. So, no, it's not. Yeah.
Is it easy being around you?
Because I think that, I mean, it depends on what capacity. I mean, I don't think that I'm easy to be around if you are in my way in terms of what my conception of justice is and we're in the courtroom. If you are trying to block what I think is the right thing, right, then no, you don't want to be around me. I'm extremely irritating and extremely annoying, extremely, you don't want, you don't. But I think, like, outside of that, personally, I'm extremely, like, chill, you know what I mean, in terms of my non-professional, self. And so I think that, yeah, I mean, like everybody, I just like to kick it at the beach, and you go to the pool and chill. And I like tropical vacations and really good food, and a little bit of weed here and there doesn't hurt anybody, So that's it,
Did you ever have a plan B?
In terms of what I was going to do if I didn't become an attorney?
Correct.
No. I didn't actually, and I don't think that that's a smart thing. We should always have plan Bs, but I just didn't at that time.
What made? Because there has to be a sense of assuredness. Like, you have to be very. This is what I'm going to do. And period. Where did that come from?
Well, I just think it was just. I was just sort of born with it. Like, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to give it my all. But I was very, like, scared and insecure. I didn't think that I could cut it. I didn't do well on my LSATs. The LSAT is the exam that you need to take before you apply to law school, right? It's a very boilerplate exam that has nothing to do with being an attorney or thinking like an attorney or what happens in law school or what you learn in law school or how you're going to perform in law school. But that test and those numbers are used really. It's like 90% of your application. So people who score really high on that, right, will get into like Harvard and those types of things, et cetera. And so I didn't score that high on that. I had great grades, I had a great GPA, and I was a very hardworking guy, right. But I really did not think that I was that smart or intelligent, right. I thought that I was more deficient compared to I was comparing myself, right, to others and things like that, right. And so that got the higher scores, and I didn't think that I would be as smart or as good of an attorney, right? I learned that that's such bullshit, and the reality is that, it takes a long time, but I looking back now, I saw myself as much less than what I really am.
Really?
And I realize that, especially more and more now as I get older, because I get more, I get wiser, right, and more aware, right, about the world and myself in it, right? And so I think that, another thing to inspire people to know is that the way, whatever insecurities you're feeling, it's totally natural. We all do, right? But just know that, like, how you feel and, like, that level of insecurity is probably just completely exaggerated or embellished in your own personal framework, and that people really don't see you that way, right? Or you are objectively really not deficient, right? And so I surprised myself after my first year of law school because, I did really well. So well that I earned an academic scholarship, right? And I got on Law Review, which is like a prestigious publication where you write articles and legal scholarly articles about the law and things like that. And so I was, that's sort of like after the first year, I was like, wow, maybe I can do this stuff. And maybe I am like meant to do this, and you get more confidence about your abilities,
Is there anything you would have done differently through your school time or the first years out of law school?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if I could have like given myself, if I could have treated myself better in terms of like nutrition and exercise and not felt like that I had to make every day so difficult, right? If I just gave myself like, okay, today you can actually just kind of relax today and maybe only do 2 hours today instead of 10 plus every day.
Wow.
That's what I think would have been nice.
Still, I still think that's training for where you are now.
Yeah, I think so.
There's a point in our show, and this is it, where we throw some words of wisdom out to the people watching. What words of wisdom will you throw out?
I mean, the words of wisdom, man. I mean, it's just like, it's like nothing is the way that it actually appears on the internet. That's the first thing, okay? Like everywhere for everybody. So along with that, do not compare yourself to other people. Don't look at these numbers of followers and what people are doing and how they're portraying themselves as like the benchmark, right? And so when you're starting to feel insecure or like not so good because of what you're seeing on social media or because of what's happening maybe in your job and what's happening with other people's in your other people in your job, like boom, stop yourself. That's not the way. Just be yourself. So just be true to yourself, right? Kick ass, be true to yourself, work really hard, and stand up to bullies, and you have to do what you believe is the right thing to do. Do what you believe is the right thing to do, whether it's unpopular or not. And that's it.
Working with so many people and defending people.
Yeah.
Is there a general trait that we all have as human?
Yeah, I mean, the general trait that everyone has as humans is to look out for themselves first, So if that means like, okay, somebody, or let's say if that means like a prosecutor, for example, might think, okay, I agree with Leventhal that maybe that the right thing to do is what he's asking. But if I do it, I might get in trouble with my boss who might have a different opinion as to how to deal with this case. And if I get in trouble with my boss, I might not get promoted, right? And I have a family too, right? And I'm trying to grow and, everything else. And so, that might actually, change, like, so they might agree with me, but they're not actually going to do that in court. And so it's just this level of, we're all just trying to, I guess, nothing is free in this life. And everybody wants something for themselves. Yeah. Period. Nobody just truly just gives it and just doesn't expect anything.
This is going to be a little series of questions that just popped in my head.
Yeah.
Do you sometimes have a different personal opinion versus your professional opinion?
In terms of like
defending somebody.
Oh no, I mean I don't really. Again, if I had a problem and if I was focused on whether someone was innocent or guilty or whether they did this or that and blah, 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 if I was focused on that, then I wouldn't be a good defense attorney. Okay. If that's what you're focused on, then you shouldn't be doing what I do. So no, I don't have a different professional and personal opinion about what I'm dealing with on a day-to-day basis. I am who I am. I'm true to myself. I'm just more of a dick and I'm more aggressive as an attorney than I am just
as a person. Do you believe in second chances?
Of course, I believe in third and fourth chances and stuff, particularly with people who are suffering, and have, food addiction, alcohol, substance abuse, gambling, what have you, right? Because, compassion is like, there's not enough compassion in this world, right? And if we just cared more about people, then we wouldn't have so many damn problems, right? If you just gave people a chance, you just gave them education, gave them some health care, maybe, right? Maybe things would change, right? Mm. So, I just think that that this country is not focused on people. It's focused on money and power, and it always will be. And that is why we are in the situation that we're in.
So not everything is just black and white.
No, nothing's black and white, but I just think that it's just, and this is like why I care about what I do so much, because I care about people, right? It's just that simple. Just care about people, because people drive this world, not computers. We, people, created computers.
Right. Do you think kids nowadays have it tougher than your generation or my generation?
No, not at all. Well, actually, let me take that back. In some ways, yes, and in some ways, no. I think that it's easier for them in the sense of being able to get information and to be able to cheat their way through school and things like that because of Google, and it's easier for them to put out a certain image and to, you know what I mean? And it's easier to make money and to get notoriety and exposure, and it's easier to be a narcissist and get away with it and all these things, right? And it's easier to, okay, whatever, right? It's easier to do a lot of things, but it's also more difficult for, I think, newer millennials in many senses, because your self-worth is in many ways dictated by your social media presence, right? And that's super, super unhealthy and toxic, and it's just fake, right? It's like, to like, you know, and so I think it's so different, so hard for so many kids, right? And then, you know, to like just to be a student now, to be like scared to go to school because, you know what I mean, you have so many. So I think that it's harder for kids in this day and age in the sense that there's so many more crazy, unstable people because of the internet, you know? Mm. And yeah, you know, and so, and I also think it's really difficult for them too, is if they, you know, if they kind of like grew up like with every process going through a computer, right, then their interpersonal skills and their emotional intelligence has been like stymied by no fault of their own, right, and it's, you know, they're super awkward, you know, sometimes, you know, when you're trying to, you know.
Yeah, and I ask that too because you talk about your anxiety and your stress, and I think that kids nowadays just live in this huge, like, fishbowl that everybody was watching them, and which I really don't think they are, but I think they think that because I work with kids too. Because me as an adult, I believe so. So yeah,
it's really sad. I mean, it's not fair. You know what I mean? That like there's so much like. I guess the best way to say it is this: I think it's a lot more difficult for kids in the sense they have a whole lot less privacy.
Overall, these are some of my last questions.
For all of us now, it's a lot more difficult for everybody. Everything's a trade-off, you know? Social media, you know, all these connections, and you can make more money maybe than you could in the 90s or whatever it was. Yeah. But with that, right, comes all like the trade-off of, you know, it's free for all.
Yeah, because I wouldn't have met you had I not been for the internet.
Exactly.
So in my line of job, I love the internet.
Right.
But then I have to be very careful about what I post.
Right.
Because if you saw something nasty, you wouldn't want me in your office.
See, that's the thing. It's self-censorship, right? It's like you, right, you might want to say something, right, but you're going to not post it because you are thinking about what other people are going to think.
Yes. Right? I'm not a very PC person.
And I'm in that same realm now, especially on these like professional websites and things like that, and I'm with other networks on Facebook with lawyers and things like that. I want to just be able to say like, hey, you know, fuck this guy, right? But I can't.
Right. Yeah. If I could talk about some guests that I have.
But actually, you know what? A lot of people are disgusting too and actually do that to the nth degree. Like, they're so terrible to people, right? Yeah. Like, little, you know, the computer bully, you know?
Yeah.
You see it a lot of, like, you know, bullying.
And one of my last questions.
Yeah.
Overall, as a defender, are people generally good? Are people good?
Well, my clients are generally good, yes.
Good question. Because I honestly
you know what I mean by that, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. I honestly believe that people...
Can't say the same for...
People deep down inside, even though on the outside it might seem like you're being selfish or a total ass, sometimes we do things because we believe it's the best thing for us, somehow.
Well, we're all doing shit every day, but just that, you know, it's like, are you going to get caught, number one? Are you going to put yourself in a position where it's more easy to be exposed, right? If you're homeless and you're on the street, you know, I mean, hey, you're out there, they're going to fuck with you. You know what I mean? So it's just all, you know, it's a lot easier to fuck with the homeless person on the street who's, you know, with the glass, you know what, right? You know, with the crack, just trying to feel good. But then the white woman in the rich area, you know, in Brentwood, who's popping, you know, like, you know, 10 Vicodins a day, it's the same thing as heroin. It's just, you know, it's an opiate, right? Like, no one ever knows, no one's ever going to mess with her, and she's not out on the street, so she's probably not going to pick up a case, right?
Got it.
And so it's like, I don't represent criminals. I represent people, right, who are suffering or who have made some isolated mistake, and they need somebody to explain who they truly are as a human being in the court and to protect their life going forward so that it's not altered in a permanent way.
Yeah. Well, we're down to the last couple of minutes. Any last words for people watching you? And also, can you give them the information where they can find you?
Oh, of course. I mean, you know, I guess the last word, I just thank you so much, you know, Danny, for having me. You know, you're a tremendous person. You really are. Like, your energy and your light is just so positive and so genuine, right? And sort of what I was alluding to earlier, it's just that notion of authenticity is so rare now in this day and age, and so like that's just a wonderful thing that you have.
Thank you.
So for me, I mean, you can find me easily. You just Andrew Leventhal, you type it into Google, and boom, it comes up, right? But I'm in Pasadena. I'm in LA. I'm an LA criminal defense lawyer. You know, I'm very passionate, in your face. I want to win. I want to help people. So if you have any friends or family members or contacts who has an open case or who has a record that they want to try to get cleaned up, hey, I will do everything in my power to get the job done.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you.
I know we worked around our schedules, and I'm glad I finally got a chance to come meet you.
Danny.
I'm for those of you watching and listening, again, I found you, and then I was like, who is this dude? Researched you, loved the passion that you put out there on your videos. I was like, this guy definitely has a put it together story, and I'm so glad we got to meet. So
thanks, Danny.
Let me pause. Let me do my thing here, and then we're done. All right, guys. Well, that was my interview with attorney Andrew Leventhal here in his office in Pasadena. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. Please check us at abnormalentertainment.com where you can get all the information on the shows. Follow me on Facebook. You can check out Put It Together Podcast, and you get all the information on it. Stay tuned. We have a song for Put It Together coming up. The Kamala brothers are helping me put that together, so it'll air soon. For now, this is Daniel Garza saying, hey, put it together.
Subscribe to Put It Together on iTunes, Stitcher, and at abnormalentertainment.com/putittogether. Find Put It Together on Facebook and tweet Daniel at Lil Messican, LILMESICAN. And for more podcasts, comics, books, movies, and more, head to abnormalentertainment.com.
You've been listening to the Abnormal Entertainment Network.